The last line に僕らは歩き慣れてきた日々も問うた夢は安泰な暮らしだが刺激不足上にダラダラ照らすは闇僕らの歩き慣れていた道はどこだ時はたまにじゃったがぬくもりに包まれたら本能があったシルベの方へ思い出すは優しいメロディー永遠はないなどないなどよそれもまたいいなと笑ってみる
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Third Impact Anime Podcast. Today we have another special episode, our second part to our summer season preview. I think that's what we're calling it. In general, this is going to be a little different than our normal seasonally previews. Rather than have one huge 5-hour episode where we talk about every single show that we did or did not watch, we've broken this up into two groups, with each group picking one show to represent and give a review on. But rather than just do one single review, we split that up into two reviews. So today, we will be talking about the first few episodes, two of the shows we've picked. And in a few weeks, we'll be following that up with the final review of these same shows. So it'll be a really interesting way for us to watch as these shows evolve through the weeks, rather than just plucking down at the end for the final review. So I, of course, am Tobias, and I'm joined today by Bill.
I'm dealing with fires everywhere. People are lighting on fire, but I have mystical powers to take them out.
Sounds very interesting. And today, Bill, what are you going to be reviewing for us?
If my introduction did not tell you, I am going to be talking about Fire Force.
Fire Force. And we've also got Edwin on the cast. Hey, Edwin.
Hey, this episode's presented by the letter E.
E. The letter E for what?
E.
Just E.
E for everyone.
E no, is for everyone.
Just E.
Edwin, what are you going to be reviewing for us today?
I'll be reviewing how heavy are the dumbbells you lift?
I don't know. It's been a while since I worked out last. How heavy are the dumbbells you lift?
Do GameStop games count? They're pretty heavy.
Lifting all those
cases. They got to be a few ounces.
At least. And lastly, we've got Tori online. Hey, Tori.
Hey, I am always in my savage season.
Every single day. So what are you going to be reviewing for us today?
Just like everyone else, if the title didn't give it away, it's Oh Maidens in your savage season.
Oh, Maidens indeed. That's certainly a show.
Yep.
Okay, so that's pretty much a rundown of what we're going to be doing today. If again, we're all jumping into these shows fairly fresh, so if you're not really, if you haven't heard much of either of these shows we're reviewing, and by the way, I'm reviewing this little thing called Ensemble Stars. But anyway, if you haven't really, interacted with these shows or really maybe seen it, a few posts on Twitter or social media talking about these, this is kind of a good intro, as we're also going to be introducing ourselves to them and giving some of these first impressions. All right, and we'll jump right into this. Bill, you're first on the list here with Fire Force.
Cool. So, Fire Force is made by David Productions, which you might know as they're the production company behind everyone's favorite show, JoJo Bizarre Adventure, and its many seasons. They are also known to do fan service shows like Strike Witches, and they did the Hyperdimension Neptunia animation adaptation. The basic premise for Fire Force is, let's take a shonen, we're going to put some firefighters in, but we're going to add some magic to it. The basic premise is the world has kind of shrunken up into these basic cities, these mega cities. We're based in Tokyo, and this phenomenon began to happen where people would just automatically light on fire for no rhyme or reason. And they would become, I'd say, like these demon, devil type, monster type creatures after being lit on fire. which they're in the show they call infernals. We follow a certain squad, Section 8 of the Fire Force, with our lead character, who I'm going to fail pronouncing his name.
Shinra Kusuke.
Thank you. But they mostly just call him by his nickname, the Devil's Footprint, because his feet can light on fire, and he's able to basically have the fire powers in Avatar and also fly like a jet engine, which I think is pretty fun. And basically, so far into the show, it's been a lot of introduction of all the characters within his company, and also greater scope of the world at this point. And the big mystery is our main character was in a fire when he was very little, where his mother and brother had supposedly died. But somehow he had miraculously survived, and he's been always trying to figure out what caused the fire and what exactly happened that day, because he was very young. And that's why he became a member of the Fire Force, because he wants to be a hero and save people from the fate that he faced as a little child. Now, as you might know or may not know, listeners, when it comes to shonen, my shonen of choice is the long series One Piece. And watching this show in comparison, it's very much a shonen of everyone having certain magical abilities, lots of fighting, which, by the way, looks very good. My only complaint with the show so far is it's been a lot of introduction, and it's been very focused on our main character, where I kind of wish, since he's part of a company, a squad, it would have more of a group dynamic, where they would kind of show off more of the other characters. Now, there are bits and pieces from the other characters, but they mostly serve as comedic fodder, which can be hit or miss, I think. Like, they do a lot of fan service with the female characters, which, I kind of just roll my eyes and just go, okay, you do what you need to do.
They were ripping that apart on a review from A&N that I was reading yesterday, the latest episode about that, which it's from the guy who created Soul Eater. What do you expect?
Yeah. Maybe in my rose-tinted glasses, I don't remember the fan service that well from Soul Eater, but yeah, I can notice it pretty well here. And for me, it doesn't work. It's not all that funny. I do like kind of his rival within the group. This kind of knight character, he views himself as kind of a knight in King Arthur's court, where he has the ability to basically create a beam sword, and he kind of always wants to be chivalrous, and he doesn't get along with our main character because he's kind of very brash. So it's a battle of personalities, which is pretty fun. Also, I really like the captain because he's also the same voice as Zoro within One Piece, which is pretty fun. Like I was saying, I kind of wish there was more of a group dynamic, and I want to care about the main character's backstory of him trying to solve this fire, but I kind of wish they had other mysteries going around. They finally did a mystery in the latest episode where you learn that the Fire Force Company 8, their main job is to investigate the other companies, and that all the other companies are basically their own individual units that don't really cooperate with each other, which is kind of interesting. And we met this other unit called Company 5 with this kind of very dominatrixy type leader, and just them trying to be political about interactions with each company, of just like, you're trying to be cordial, but there's this unwritten rule of just like, we don't work together. And you also kind of learn that there's political higher ups and kind of like this is where the fire force department stands, then the people who make their equipment is the number one influence within their nation because they make all the equipment and they have a virtual monopoly. So I found that was kind of interesting. But yeah, if they kind of go more into the world building, like they finally did in this episode, and actually gave more of the other characters in Company stuff to do besides annoying fan service, I think I would like this show more. I'm kind of on the borderline with this show at this point. Because the main character I haven't really connected with, and I feel like it's kind of been going at a slow pace for a shonen for me. But I do like the world, and if they kind of expand a bit, I think it could be more interesting.
No, yeah, for sure. I've seen a couple episodes of that, and I agree that the general aesthetic looks really nice. And I think particularly the way they outline a lot of these, burnt up scenes, this very dark blacks and reds against the blue lines of the Fire Force's outfits are very striking.
Yes.
And again, this is the original manga is made by the Soul Eater, creator. So visuals are very much what you would expect, very much on point. Honestly, the greatest strength of the show, I would say, as someone who didn't like Soul Eater, I can't deny that it looks very striking. I've only seen, I think, the first 2 or 3 episodes, and I thought there's a lot of growth, a lot of space that these other side characters could grow into. So I really hope they do. I really like the chief. I think there's a couple. He's really kind of a goofy, like really strong, muscly kind of character. And you mentioned these sort of weak female characters, which really saddens me because I thought what they set up in episode 2, I want to say there was a lot of space for them to really spread out, and I really hope they end up doing so.
Yeah, speaking about the chief, one thing I really enjoy about him is that he serves as sort of a parental figure for the 2 new recruits.
Yeah.
And he also shows that, hey, I'm not a pyrotechnic like you guys are, but I'm still able to hang with the best.
Right. I think I've got a soft spot in my heart for characters in these shonen worlds that don't have any powers, but are sheerly strong by the power of their own willpower and their growth.
Yeah, and I want to give this one a couple episodes because I didn't like Soul Eater, and I'm very vocal about that, and I know I shouldn't be because I know there's plenty of people out there who love it, but I want to give this one just a little bit of a go because I think it stands apart enough, but at the same time, it's just like, well, if I'm going to get the same formula in this show, do I want it? I don't know.
Yeah. I'm glad I'm not alone in the Soul Eater hater crowd.
Mm-mm. No, you're not. I feel justified.
Yeah.
I just in general, I just hope that the female characters are, excuse me, become more than just fan service, and that there can be more of a group dynamic, because that's one thing that I feel that's missing. That I kind of wish they weren't solely just focused on our main character or our main shonen protagonist.
I did read a post the other day, and I don't know if it was a joke or not because I haven't watched this show either, but it was just like, so far, all the ladies in Dr. Stone are way more useful, and only one has shown up in a flashback so far.
Yikes.
So, that's how it's going.
It really doesn't do too much different from other shows, like My Hero or even Soul Eater.
Go watch Demon Slayer.
Or join me in my cult of One Piece.
So, I mean, it's funny you mentioned My Hero, because when Bill talked about that other company that's all about making these products, it did make me think of that sort of economy in My Hero Academia, where sure, there's all these heroes doing superhero things, but there is a background of companies and and sponsors and whatnot that make up this economy of the My Hero Academia world. Like, there's the one character that we introduced to in the big final exam or whatever from season 2 that's all about making stuff and making gadgets. So it made me think of that when Bill mentioned this in this context, and I could definitely see them pulling a little bit from My Hero Academia for inspiration, as it were.
トレーニング後は30分以内にタンパク質だ
We'll go ahead and move on then with E for Edwin, with how heavy are the dumbbells you lift?
Yeah, so I've been watching the Dumbbell anime, and first of all, I knew I had to watch it because it's being animated by Doga Kobo, who is very well known for their comedy anime, such as Nozaki-kun, New Game, Yuri Yuri.
Oh, wow.
So because of all of that, I knew I had to watch it. Afterwards, I decided to look in who was directing it, and I found out it was Mitsue Yamazaki, who had also directed the aforementioned Nozaki-kun, which is one of my favorite anime.
Yeah.
So I was going in with high hopes going into this show.
Nozaki-kun is pretty great. You all should watch it.
Yeah, so, I mean, as most people would look at this, it's definitely a strange premise. You have this girl who she starts to get a little bit chubby, eating a little bit too much, so she decides to hit up this new gym that just opened up. And while she's there, she meets up with a classmate who's also probably like the valedictorian of her class. She's perfect. She's slim. She's smart. She's popular. And she's also really big into gym.
And why is she into gyms, Edwin?
Because she has a muscle fetish.
She does indeed.
That was something I was not expecting. Afterwards, they ended up meeting their trainer, who's this dude called Nachio-kun. He alright. But when you look at him, he looks like any ordinary trainer. But once you mention about muscles, he rips off his clothes, and he rips off his clothes. He's just like flexing and doing a bunch of muscle poses.
He's ripped too.
Yeah. So the show
like ridiculously
is
ripped.
Yeah. The show's a slice of life, and you get introduced to these characters. You get introduced to the main character's best friend, who turns out she actually is part of I believe it was a gym.
Yeah, I think her gym trains
like
boxers.
Yeah. Yeah. So that adds yet another character into the mix of the world of exercising. Afterwards, the teacher ends up joining them too. Of all the characters, I was not expecting the teacher, so it was definitely a nice surprise there. And I'm just excited to see like all the different exercise techniques they show you, and all the equipments and the proper uses, and which muscles that it exercises.
So I guess going forward, where do you see this show kind of going? Do you think they're just going to stick to this whole muscle fetishism, or where do you think the plot's going to go?
They're going to stick to the characters, keep on working out, and they're going to keep on getting better and better at their exercising routines.
Now, Edwin, for me, anime comedy can be really hit or miss. Like, I really loved Pop Team Epic and Love is War, for example. But most of the time, I just don't connect with anime comedies. Do you think as someone that has a hard time getting into that genre would like how heavy are your dumbbells you lift?
What makes this show like really funny, like Nozaki-kun, it takes the characters and the situations they're in and puts a little goofy twist to them.
No, yeah, in my own experience going into this, I heard about this when the first got announced, because everyone was hoping the official English title would be "Do You Even Lift, Sis?" Which I think they did have a missed opportunity by going with a very normal, how heavy are the dumbbells you lift. But I went into this thinking it was going to be a lot more fan servicey, and yeah, there's some fan service in here for sure, but it's not really the focus of the show. It really is about tricking nerds into working out, which is a bonus in my book.
I will admit it has worked for me. I've been doing a bit more exercise ever since I've been watching the show. I've been eating healthier. I've actually been listening to it. It's my Bible for exercising.
Oh,
this
my
show
God.
has changed my life.
You just want to be macho and to be able to just Hulk out
I can't get over the guy with the really pretty boy anime face and then like stupidly like Arnold Schwarzenegger ripped. Like it's a very funny mental image.
Yeah. And I like the opening and the ending too. The opening, the lyrics are just all they're doing is saying the names of these exercises. It is just really like upbeat song, and even the ending is just they're just talking about muscles.
And even at the very end, there's always like some exercise that you can try at home.
Yeah, and then they go forward and show you sort of like what to do and not to do, and how not to push yourself too hard. But yeah, it really is like educational.
It's as much educational as it is comedy.
I mean,
and you really don't have shows like that are able to like blend both of them as well as this show did. I haven't seen anything like it.
They know what's gonna get the otaku moving, and it's anime girls telling you to exercise. So
Yeah.
I guess that's all it took for me to do exercise.
what does that say about you?
Yeah, I feel like with that fan service, it's present, and I think the first episode, there's at least one scene where it goes a little too far, a little not comfortable with. But having only seen the first two, I think they pretty much get rid of that by episode 2. They
That's
like
good.
the one character mentions that she likes muscles, but they pretty much just focus on the exercising part.
You see it from time to time, but it's definitely not the central focus of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
But ultimately, yeah, I was gonna say that this is a show that had not only surprised me but exceeded my expectations, and I highly recommend people to go watch it.
歌になった感情が溢れていったんだ目指している未来へ向けてきっと届かせるから自分を信じなきゃ始まらないだろうそのストーリーは泣いた想い響かせ合っているぶつかり合うたび強くなるそれはきっと絆だって見つめてくれているその笑顔が答えをくれるから伝えた胸の声をつなげた熱いメロディー望む明日が欲しいなら新しい世界へと変えてゆこう We are singing shining so for you 眩しいくらい輝くのさスターズアンサボ青春でステージで
All right, so gotta give a
Sarah
little
just
background.
sneezed.
All right, so I'm gonna say this right now. Like, if you're a huge OnStars fan, the Ensemble Stars fan, or if your name is Sarah, you probably should turn this part off or skip past it because you're probably gonna get really, really mad.
I can hear the keyboards clacking now.
Clack, clack.
Clack, 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 at Tobias.
That's funny.
Like.
That's funny because I don't see Sully here. All right, so no. In this
We love
case,
to bully each other.
he appreciates the attention, I'm sure. Okay, so going into this, I've been around the anime block for a bit. You know, I've seen a lot of genres, seen a lot of tropes, and I thought I've seen it all under the sun. But you know, when I read through Twitter, and whenever I read like Sarah's tweets or whatever, her retweets, I feel like I'm having a stroke. I don't understand a single thing that she tweets or retweets like half the time. And it's a very alien concept to me, a lot of this idol stuff. So I chose OnStars simply to challenge myself, because I've never really watched any idol stuff, whether it was Love Live or Idolmaster from back at the beginning of the decade, to any of this other stuff, Bang Dream or any of these gacha game rip-offs or whatever. I've just completely not touched that territory at all. So it was very much a big challenge for me to jump into this. So that's kind of why I did it. Okay, so that disclaimer being out of the way, Ensemble Stars are OnStars or InStars or however I'm going to abbreviate it here. This is InStars. So this is originally a mobile game from 2015. It's opened up into a larger multimedia project, as all of these gacha games are turning into. The anime is also done by David Production. They seem to be getting a lot of work this season. I think people are starting to recognize how much effort they put into the JoJo's TV series, and they're getting a lot of work, so I'm glad to see that. But I do want to just give two staff credit shout-outs here, because I think it's kind of interesting. The director for this is Masakaza Hishida, credited here officially as Junpaku Yagurashite. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. But this person's worked on a couple of other Idol adaptations, King of Prism, Prepara, and the Pretty Rhythm series. But they've got a number of credits and a wider variety of anime as well. So they worked on Inuyasha, a couple of Gundam series, including Turn A, one of the more classic ones at this point, and both the Yatterman TV series in 2008 and the 2009 movie. So there is a link there I'm sure Sully will appreciate, if nobody else. And the scriptwriter here is Shinichi Inotsume, who previously worked on script and scenario for the various JoJo Bizarre Adventure parts, the TV adaptation, of course, Persona 5, the animation, and a few other things as well. They have pretty wide ANN encyclopedia pages if you want to check it out. But I thought that was really interesting here, because I did not wasn't expecting a whole lot, I guess, coming into a very fresh new franchise. All right, so this show, what is this about? God only knows. So this show takes place in this Yumenosuke Academy. It's just basically a performance school, I guess would be the best way to put it. These students perform in a couple different arts, whether it be, various like bands or idol groups or what have you. It just kind of leaves it open to your imagination. Let them explore, at least let the show explore these different disciplines. And so there's a bunch of boys. It's pretty much an all-boys academy. I don't recall if it's an actual all-boys academy or if they just happen to have nothing there but boys. But in any case, in all their different disciplines there, they all perform in what they call Dream Idol Festivals, or they shorten as Dreyfest. So they all have their own classes, but occasionally they get together to have shonen fights where they perform at each other in these grandiose stage performances, and they have to compete to rank up all the way up to SS rank, and I guess be the best in school. I guess it really comes down to being a shonen battle situation. They just sing and dance instead of the actual fight. So like the series opens up with the main character Anzu, the only girl in the academy, I believe. Again, if not canonically, then she's definitely the only one they show. She's enrolled in the new producer course, so she is pretty much yes, Bill. She is pretty much the stand-in for the player character, the audience. And I think that's something that's kind of interesting. When I talked earlier about things like Love Live and Idolmaster, I see idol shows nowadays as being the modern-day harem show. Where I would say this show reminds me a lot of being... I would
not disagree with that.
That is a hot take.
Well, let me explain. I'm not completely finished. I'm sure there's keyboard warriors racking it up right now, but
I feel like I know your reasoning, and I'm very curious now. Go ahead.
Okay, so this show reminds me a lot of RN High School Close Club in the setup, because there's the one girl that falls in with this group of boys, and they all have wacky adventures, throughout. And I feel like just like here, the main character, while having her own story, is kind of a stand-in for the audience, and to some degree. And I feel like, when I say a modern-day version, I think the thing about harems is that we've got the main character that is the audience stand-in, the everyman character. We've got all these side characters that are characters that you are supposed to choose, which is the best, which is the one the main character should up with, etc., etc. But the way that idols have sort of done it is they haven't really made the relationships the primary focus. You still have these variety of archetypes that you kind of are meant to stan. You pick one or two that you think are the best girl or best boy in this case, but there's not really this undertone of them getting with the main character, which I guess I appreciate this genre evolving from the harem genre in that regard. Because even though we have the situation where there's one girl, many boys, the few episodes I've watched so far, there doesn't seem to be a relationship brewing among any of them. There's a wider subplot, but it's not one based in relationship. And I feel like even in, we talked a lot about Zombieland Saga from last year, which I think honestly kind of turned me around on the idol genre as a whole. It was kind of like that too, where you have these characters that are very different from each other. Everyone's got their favorite zombie, but there's no real building up to a relationship or sort of, like what do you say, like a gaze, whether it be a male gaze or a female gaze. There's not really that expectation for the show. So that's kind of my hot take. Did you guys want to respond to that at all?
Tori, you go first.
Oh, no, it's okay. I pretty much agree with that, and that kind of like piggybacks off the argument that I always make of like, this is why when you watch shows like Love Live and K-On! And whatever, there's no male, like predominant male presence, because they don't want the male viewer to feel like there's a competition going on. Like, I think it kind of comes across the same way in like what you were explaining too. Sort of.
Yeah, Tori, you're exactly right, because they know their audience. If they do any sort of romance plot within their idol shows, then they're afraid that their audience will say, well, that's competition. I don't like that because I want to be with that male or female idol.
Exactly.
So the way they have conflict...
there's still a lot of space here for the audience to latch on to a couple of their favorite characters, whether you just see them as generic, archetypes or individual characters in their own right. There's still a lot of space to have that angle of fan service if that's what you're coming to the show for. But it doesn't really do it in a very gross way. Now, that being said, this show is goofy as hell. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll probably notice that I've screenshot. I spent half the time watching the show just screenshotting it because it is goofy, and in both good and not so great ways. Personally, a lot of it just feels very much like a video game adaptation. And again, this isn't a video game with a heavy plot per se. This is a phone game, so the plot is very much revolving around these characters and which one you stan. And I feel like
so is it like, it's like what was that one show that came out last year about horse 7? Racing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Special week. So the first episode or two really focus on throwing a bunch of boys at you that are all kind of goofy in their own way. There's like Spaghetti Boy. There's the boy that looks just like Ryuko from Kill la Kill. There's the boy that looks just like Non from Kill la Kill. There's a lot of very Kill la Kill subtext on here, which I did not expect. There's a lot of dance routines and songs that I'm sure the hardcore fans will recognize from the games and whatever the other multimedia franchise parts are, which is cool, but I'm not really a fan, so that doesn't really strike me. I will say that each episode so far has had one main musical segment that's actually been pretty good. While I spent most of the episode kind of giggling along at how silly it was, and kind of looking down on it, to some degree, like, as I'm kind of above this, There's the one main musical number is actually
all the lyrics by the end of the show.
There's been some good ones. There have been some decent songs, and in these big dance numbers, they use a lot of 3D CG that is noticeable, but I feel like there are times when it actually looks okay. It doesn't look as bad as some of the parts from Zombieland Saga, for instance. You still can't not see it once you see it. But there's part in, I think, episode 2 with Akatsuki, the Akatsuki unit. And it's like, yeah, this actually looks okay. I know in episode 3, when Undead shows up, the one of the idol units,
so
their music video. And I will say, like, if you want some music videos with anime boys, this is extremely your jam, because there's some pretty cool music videos that go along with their acts. And no, but the last one I watched, The Undead, was actually pretty well transitioning between the traditional 2D and the 3D stuff. And on that note, I feel like there's a lot of diversity in these units. While a lot of these boys do fall into very obvious archetypes and archetypal type characters, the individual idol groups they form are kind of interesting. and they have very different costume design and set design that I actually do kind of dig. I really enjoy it. Some of their normal school outfits are a little goofy. They all wear this like weird plaid pants that stands out all the time, and some of them wear like jackets or sweaters under their school uniform blazer that really look really goofy. And I guess maybe I would have to be a Japanese high schooler in 2019 to understand it, but I'm not. But besides from that, I feel like their actual costumes on stage can be kind of interesting. It's not usually something I'm really into or care that much about, but it's okay. But among all these different idol shenanigans, there's this subplot of this revolution. So I mentioned Kill la Kill a couple times, and it does. I don't know if it really borrows. I don't know if it's fair to say that it borrows from that. But just like in Kill la Kill, there are these high school, like the council members that have an iron fist over these idol groups, and the Dream Fest they perform and want to control it to make sure that these upper classes of students are, on top. But the main characters who form the idol group, Trickstar, a very Japanese idol group name, are starting to formulate this revolution against this hierarchy. And they haven't really gone deep into it. They're still introducing characters and talking about it. But I feel like this subplot could go places. So I'm interested in seeing what it does there. I'll definitely keep watching it because I'm now bound by law to do so. But at least it does have that little bit of interesting hook to keep me watching. Mm-hmm. And that's my take. I hope I guess in the future, I hope they expand upon that revolution subplot because it's an actually interesting part of the show. I hope we get I hope it continues to give a really good, even if only once per episode, a really standout musical segment. I hope we see more of these idol units, and I hope they're given just as much attention as the ones we've seen so far. Mm-hmm. And I hope Anzu actually does something because she does feel just kind of like an everyman standing character right now. But we'll see.
So it's just because I got a friend that got me into Idolmaster, and so I'm used to watching idol shows, and I like they're entertaining, so I've fallen into liking them. So I probably should have been assigned this show, so that way you wouldn't have been tortured, Tobias, because I've a past recent show from a couple, maybe last season ago, Idolish 7, was from like last year. I watched that, and I enjoyed that. Okay. One, I always enjoyed that there's a female producer because there needs to be more. I like the representation, even if it's just a stand-in. Two, is there an evil Yakuza type bad guy that's trying to thwart the idol groups? Because those are always over the top.
So the main antagonist so far is the school council president. Who's he's like a generic nerdy guy, I guess. He's got glasses. He is in the main, most popular idol group, Akatsuki, who like the older like kids. Naruto? Yeah, exactly. It's the same word as that group, Akatsuki. I guess it's Japanese. I think it's like Red Moon or something. Mm-hmm. And which is where it takes place in Naruto with their red outfits, I think. It's been 10 years since I watched Naruto. Don't make me dredge up those memories, Tori. I beg you. I don't really need more.
Keep up with Naruto's.
I don't need to dig out my headband that I've got somewhere buried in a box somewhere.
No. Tobias, I'm steering you away from the tangent town. Don't go towards that light.
Don't go down the Naruto rabbit hole.
Yeah, in here, Akatsuki, they all dress up as in traditional Japanese outfits. So they got like traditional like kimono, and their set design is all like Tori gates and like Japanese symbolism, I guess. You see like Mount Fuji and like one of those like rice paper doors, sort of present. So they represent classical Japanese stuff. Our main group, Trickstar, is just, I don't know, idols. I don't really follow that culture, so I don't know what to tell you. But like we've got a rock band, Undead, which is all made up of guys trying to pantomime monsters, like the vampire guy who likes to sleep in a coffin because of course he does.
What a mood.
Yeah, there's the guy that I think is supposed to be a werewolf. I don't know. But at least they're just I don't know what to say, man. All these groups are they're pretty funny. They're very tropey, but they are kind of charming in their own way.
Okay, well, I'm sad to hear there's no Kazumakiru like sounding evil Yakuza producer trying to thwart them. Because
there could be. In the first episode, when the first episode, they have a impromptu battle between two of the dudes, like trying to get their rank up, and the council shows up to bust it up, and it was pretty awesome. Like there's this guy swinging a guitar around like an actual axe, like they're fighting like with guitars and kicking each other, and it was actually a pretty fun little fight scene.
Is the fight scenes are they more like West Side Story, like we're on each side and we're doing dramatic dances, or is it more like it's shonen type fighting?
It's funny because the JoJo does actually show up here in Ensemble Stars. I was not expecting the David production and these JoJo staff members to really show that connection, but I think the fight scene from episode 1, there's definitely some JoJo-esque camera angles and posing, and like there's literally a dude swinging a guitar and his enemy is kicking the guitar. It doesn't make you just I feel bad for that poor guitar, because that's not cheap to buy a guitar, and they're just swinging it around like it's a sword, like it doesn't even matter. It's definitely more shonen. The actual I guess the actual choreography and the actual stage stuff is just, it's just a performance, so they kind of are judged by that. But there's a big plot here in the first 2 episodes where when the main group Akatsuki performs, everybody leaves. They don't even watch the other idol group because they I guess they consider them sort of below them, or nobody really cares. So that's part of like this whole revolution subplot, is that everyone's ignoring these up and coming freshman members, all for the upperclassmen, and that's why they need to be overthrown. Seize the means of production and producers. Seize the means of producers.
God.
My last bit is just I know this will not stop, but I wish instead of doing CGI dance choreography, because to me that's still jarring, I just wish they would just do stills, because I think that looks a ton better than bad CGI, because at least the stills are hand-drawn, a hand-drawn drawing.
Raise you the argument of they need to hire the guy who's doing all the CG stuff for Pretty Cure right now to do everything.
Of course you would try to fit P-Cure in this podcast.
I would. Of course, Edwin. I gotta balance it out just a little bit.
I mean, it's not fair if Bill gets to mention One Piece, and I get to mention Kill la Kill. Tori gets to mention Pretty Cure.
Thank you for defending my honor. Go ahead, Bill.
But no, that was just my greater point. I feel like I'm talking too much. Tori, you should go.
I mean, I guess to answer that, the 3D segments, 3D CG segments, they're obvious when they show up, but I'm thinking specifically on that first undead one in episode 3. They do show a lot of background scenery and stuff to distract you from it, and they actually go between 3D dance segments and these 2D frames. So,
that's what I hate, though.
I mean, it's noticeable for like animation nerds like us, but honestly, I don't think it looks as bad as it could have. It doesn't. Honestly, I don't think it looks bad even. And I say that because as someone who hates 3D CG for the most part, I don't think it actually looks bad here.
It's probably not bad, but to me, I just don't like the jarring effect. It's like going from a 2D movie to, look, something's coming from the wall. It's just
Go watch Kimono Friends, Bill.
You know what? I'll try that. Maybe it'll be different.
It's a sweet show.
I hate the jarring going back to 2D and 3D, this CGI 3D. I just wish they would just say, it looks bad, it's too jarring for an audience, it takes them out, so let's just do stills, because we can't do a dance sequence, because that's too much animation, which I completely understand. But that's my big complaint with new idol shows at this point.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about all I really want to, at this point, can say about it. I'm going to keep watching it I think it's 1 season, but let's check right quick. Let's see what Wikipedia has to say. It doesn't say on Wikipedia, so it's going to be 1 or 2 core, probably just 1. But I'll keep watching it, at least for the sake of our reviews. And it's actually not a terrible show. It's very jarring for me, not coming into this fandom at all or really understanding any of it. But it's charming in its own way. I could certainly see what people see in this kind of thing.
Oh, and last thing. I am shocked that this is not made by Namco Bandai. It's not a Scamco mobile game because they own the idol market. Like an Iron Kingpin. So it's shocking to me just going on Wikipedia that it's not a Scamco game. So hats on to them.
I wonder if that's because that's why it took so long for it to get to animation. Because a lot of those idol games that was it. I can't think of the name. Cygames. Cygames has been doing a lot of collaboration between their mobile stuff and the animation stuff. So I think because this looks like it's done by a company called Happy Elements, that I'm not really familiar with. But I wonder if that's kind of why it took so long to put it to anime. Who knows? I'm sure the OnStars fans will be in the comments section explaining
They'll let
why.
you know.
In all fairness, Sarah, if you want to correct me on any of this here, I would not be entirely against it.
いくつな15ページだった次をめくると息が詰まり溺れた文字にできないこの感情に今日も理不尽に打ちのめされた潔癖だった知りたくなかったこの苦しさの正体とかだけど傷ついても読むことをやめない綺麗じゃいられない君を知るページ荒ぶれ乙女たち抗え乙女たち痛みを知ってゆけしおりはいら
But we've got one more show to talk about today, and that is Oh Maidens in Your Savage Seasons.
Yes, that was my show.
You made it.
I made it. Yes, I am Mario Okada. Hello, welcome to my podcast, friends. Do you want to cry? Yes. Okay. So anyway, when I first heard about this show, I did not know it was a Mario Okada show, so I absolutely had already written it off because I was like, some nasty man is doing the show, and it's not going to be good, and it's going to be weird. But then I kept looking into it, and I'm like, I trust Mario Okada with my life, so I'm sure it will be fine. There's not really anything super interesting about it, like, as far as, like, the production staff goes. It's actually directed by 2 men, but I'm just imagining Okada, like, constantly over their shoulders going, no, no, no. But small staff, a lot of companies that I have not even heard of before, and the only notable voice actor from this show that I saw, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, was the voice actor who played Nina, and she voiced Chaika from Chaika the Coffin Princess, which I need to revisit that, but neither here nor there. I wanted to watch it because of the subject matter. I feel like this is something tough for me and something tough for a lot of people. But it's presented in a very, like, silly and relatable way without feeling stupid. Like, does that make sense? Like, it's very childish at times because, like, these are very young high schoolers, but, like, you are still a child in that sense. And I had just caught up to episode 5, and I was so relieved that so far it handles the subject matter of, like, sex and sexuality without sexualizing these characters, like I was worried that it was going to do.
So did you give a kind of a brief synopsis of the plot?
Oh,
think you
no,
kind of jumped
no, I did
into.
not at all.
I mean, you really kind of describe it by way of talking about themes, but
Yeah.
just for the viewers at home.
Yes. So if you have not heard of the show or you have not started it yet, it's basically about a group of high school girls, and they are part of the literature club, but instead of stuff like The Great Gatsby, they're basically just reading erotica. Because they consider that very, like, highbrow and adult, like, you know, one of that age would. And then they start talking about, okay, well, what's one thing you want to do before you die? And they're very, like, quiet, reserved, like, uppity classmate is just like, I want to know about sex. And then it's just episode after episode of, like, silly innuendo, silly misunderstanding, but at the same time, you're kind of just like, oh, yeah, I did that too, didn't I? There's the one episode where they're, like, trying to come up with a code word to talk about this stuff, and I'm just like...
The suffering of erotic experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that last week.
And I'm just like, this reminds me of something that happened in middle school, and I will not tell the story on the podcast, but I will tell you guys later because it's hilarious. But it's just like, and then when you get something like that on your brain, you just constantly are just finding, like, stupid meanings in everything that has nothing to do with what you were actually talking about. But so far, I think it's very good. It's very nuanced, and I think that has a lot to do with Mari Okada handling it, because she writes what she knows. A lot of her stories are very based out of what happened to her growing up, and she's lived kind of a interesting life, and I can really relate to her in some ways with some of that stuff. But I think the thing that stood out to me so far about it was there was this one arc with the character Nina, and she talks about how even at a young age she had started to recognize that, like, men were looking at her in a way that they should not be looking at little girls. Like, she was already aware of, like, oh, you know, I'm 12 years old, but they're already starting to, like, sexualize me. And that's like a very important thing to bring up, I think, because people don't really acknowledge that. And then it ends up going into this, like, the rest of the subplot, and they call, like, straight out this character a pedophile, and you feel really bad for her, because you can tell that that's, like, really, really gotten her down.
Yeah, she's gone through some stuff, too. It becomes pretty apparent in the first few episodes that she's been places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which sucks. And then there's something also very tragic going on with her that, you know, I won't spoil, but I know you guys have seen it, so you know what's going on, but... yeah, I think that, like, Okada was the perfect person to handle this because of the subject matter, so it never feels weird and creepy, even though I know, coming from the viewpoint of an adult, it is sort of weird to hear about kids explicitly talking about this stuff, but it's just like, well, you know, we all had these thoughts too, and we were all awkward and really stupid about this stuff when we were, like, 12, and if not now, still. And I'm hoping that it will kind of go into exploring other, like, identities. Like, I think that might be asking for too much, because it already seems like all the, like, girls have been paired off with a boy already, and I'm just like, please, because... it's very formative years for people who have different sexual identities, for sure.
Yeah, in that way, it does remind me of Suzerain children, in which there are, like, the predetermined pairings.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the same theme where they're exploring their own sexuality and their own feelings during that middle school / high school period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure from what I've seen that the pairings aren't going to last exactly.
I hope
there
so.
there seems to be, like, the Okada's very good at being very slow with some of these, like the way she shows these relationships, and by having some of these characters jump into some relationships very fast, it's there to explore all aspects of that relationship, both getting together and ending it.
And I think, it makes sense too, because I can think of, like, people I knew in middle school who had a boyfriend or girlfriend suddenly, and they were like, oh, we're so in love, and then like 3 weeks later they broke up because they couldn't stand each other. So that does make sense. I get when you bring it up that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I feel like there's a couple of candidates that I think we're going to see some surprises from. I think that the main Miss Sugawara, the older girl, or the one that acts more mature, I see her going places, being very different than her arcs can be very different than the main character Kazusa, for instance, for sure. Just being that older, more experienced person.
Yes.
But no, I completely agree that I feel like it's so easy when we talk about anime and like when anime does sex comedy for it to go that way.
Yes, it's just very raunchy and not funny.
Yeah, I mean, and this is it. Like you mentioned earlier, it is raunchy. It is awkward. It is goofy, but it's very relatable in that. Like we've all gone through this situation, even though we've never been Japanese high schoolers. Like you mentioned with your one middle school story that you're not going to share. You know, we've all had done really dumb things.
Yeah.
We've all had really dumb thoughts, and it's kind of interesting for me, for growing up male, like seeing this exploration by a female cast of characters. It's very easy as a dude to think, you hear this trope that dudes are only thinking about sex all the time, and
But it's girls too.
Yeah, it's kind of refreshing to feel like it's not just me and my body doing it. Like it's from the other side. It's kind of refreshing to see that it's a universal experience.
It's a point of view that you normally don't get to see in anime.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially for males to see it in a female point of view.
Yeah,
it's definitely something that I was really surprised about.
Especially in an execution that feels honest and not unsavory.
Yeah. And it doesn't shy away from even some of the unsavory bits. When, again, slight spoiler, this is like episode 1 or 2, when she walks in the guy's room.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, it's awkward, and you feel very awkward, but again, a very relatable experience. And like the DVD he's got.
You can't help but to laugh.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. Like in any other anime, this would be really dumb and really, like you said, very gazy, I guess. I don't know how to put it. Yeah, it would have been very pornographic in and of itself, but it's not. It's just a relatable, funny experience.
This happens to people every day. Good luck.
Maybe I'm watching Maidens too. I'm behind though. I've only watched the first 3 episodes, but maybe I'm a weirdo. But I don't view this show as a comedy. The way I'm kind of viewing it is it's a slice of life drama to me, just because I'm more empathetic towards the female the members of the literature club, because I understand that when you're in that middle school, high school phase of like, you have no idea about sex or sexuality or how anything works, and they're overthinking about everything, and they're just the complete anxiety and overwhelmingness of that topic. And I think for me it's not really a comedy. It's more of like, this is how I was in real life. Just I'm completely overwhelmed by this topic, and I didn't know who to really turn to. Luckily, I had people I could talk to about sex and sexuality, but
that's when you should have been in the literature club.
Sorry, what? Evan?
You should have been in the literature club.
I guess, but I kind of view it as just like they're just so completely stressed out, except for the more mature one who seems to so far have everything kind of together. But I can just relate to just their struggle of just how does everything work?
Yeah,
and just their overwhelmingness. But for me, I don't picture it as a comedy.
And I jokingly started out going like, oh, the club president, she's my favorite because what a mood. But like, the more you start learning about her, the more I really was just like, wow, I kind of see myself most in her because of like what she's going through. And then there was that moment in the 5th episode, like at the very end, where I started to get kind of like teary-eyed. Because that
Okada, no.
I know. Wait, have you not seen it yet?
I haven't watched episode 5 yet.
Okay.
It's so good.
I will not ruin it for you, but I just have to say that feeling that character felt when you feel that in real life for the first time, it is completely life-changing.
I think I watched episode 4, and it kind of makes me think of, again, in very non-spoilery terms, maybe what you're kind of going for, and I did appreciate the end of that when all I would say is the report.
Yes, the report.
Like the what's the term? The realization she comes to there is very refreshing, and I can kind of see I kind of relate to that too.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're gonna take. I was gonna say we're gonna take your glasses off and give you a makeover.
Oh, that's fine. I could use one. I mean, you complained about my one-sided fashion at the past few conventions that we've been at. You and Andrew both.
Anyway, moving on.
But no, I agree with you, Bill. That I would say comedy. It's not meant to be a comedy exactly. There are definitely awkward situations that are meant to make you laugh.
Exactly, and it's more funny. It's more of a comedy in the sense of like I've been there too, but now as an adult that I can process this feeling and what this meant, I can laugh at it now.
Yeah. Almost comedic in a like Shakespearean sense. Like it's not. You're there to kind of relate with these characters, I feel like, and that's where the funniness comes through, I think. No, I totally would agree that this is a super great show. I think it's probably my favorite so far of the season, just because it goes places that you don't really see other anime going. I think my favorite character is the short one that gets in the chat rooms.
Mrs.
She's
Chat
vicious.
Room.
She is vicious.
I do. I like her too. She's very funny. I don't know how I feel about that little side plot right there, but I'm hoping that gets better. I'm sure that there is an end game with that makes perfect sense, but we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think they'll go off the deep end there.
Me either.
But the one part where like they meet up, and then she loses him, but then that the grin on her face when she realizes what she's actually gonna do.
Yes.
Oh no! About to ruin this man's whole career.
I know.
All right. Any other thoughts on Maidens and your Savage Seasons?
Sorry, just one minor thing. The one thing that kind of disappoints me is while I really like High Dive, I think because it's on High Dive and not on Crunchyroll, it's not being really talked about. And that just kind of bums me out because I think if this was on Crunchyroll or even the non-anime centric streaming platforms like Amazon Prime or Netflix, it might be more talked about because this is probably my favorite. I know it's labeled a comedy, but it's my favorite kind of drama, slice of life show of the season.
Yeah, I feel like being restricted to High Dive does limit the audience that can able to watch it. Not only that, I feel the same way with how heavy are the dumbbells you lift. It's only on Funimation, so I wasn't able to watch the first couple episodes when it first came out until I borrowed someone's Funimation account.
Yeah, and I hope that all the other big shows this season, like Fire Force and Vinland Saga, don't really overshadow shows like this when it comes time to putting these on Blu-ray over here. I would like to see Old Maidens get a full, Blu-ray set.
Well, Sentai really does really elaborate those special edition Blu-ray box sets, so I think you might get that for the show, but my whole thing is just because it's on High Dive, it doesn't get that kind of word of mouth spread that stuff on Crunchyroll gets, which is which is disappointing.
Kiss me before sunrise. Oh, I'm leaving you tonight. My love found a place to stay and rest like that. Oh, we said forever, meant to be together. If we could change this world today with you.
All right, so well, let's go into like a general recap of other stuff that came out here. Last show, the other nerds on Third Impact talked about a trio of shows. We had Austin talked about Dr. Stone. Sarah talked about Do You Love Your Mom and her 2-hit multi-target attacks.
Yes.
No.
And Ryan talked about Vinland Saga. So of these three, anybody watching these I want to give thoughts on? Bill, you want to give your general thoughts on these shows first?
Okay, so I tried to watch Dr. Stone, but I couldn't get into it because if I wanted to play a survival sim game, I could do that. I don't need to watch an anime for that. And also, that character is looks too much like a JoJo character. It's too jarring for me. So
he does have a weird look.
So yeah, just the main character's design and the focus on the survival sim aspect of the show, I just don't care for. So I dropped it after the second episode. Sorry, Tobias.
No, I mean, I only watched the one episode, and I dug it more than I thought I would. I feel like the whole scientist, logician sort of main character, I thought was more interesting than I thought he would be. It reminds me of what Rick and Morty promised rather than what it actually delivered on and managed to fail on at the end. I enjoyed the first season or two of Rick and Morty, but it went a little too self-referential and a little too off the deep end. But this actually delivers on the premise of the main character being actually smart and using that to help them survive this post-apocalypse. I kind of dug some of the survival aspects, but again, I've only seen episode 1, so I can't really comment on whether it continues that. But the way they talk about like he's building a still and a distiller, I thought was kind of neat to have that real life stuff show up. There's the rest of the tone feels very shonen-esque to its detriment. I wish this had been maybe in a more serious seinen type show rather than a shonen, but that's where the money is. So I'll give it a few more episodes. I don't know if I'll stick with it, depending.
And Crunchyroll is pushing it because they're part of the production committee.
Yeah,
and go figure.
It's a big Shonen Jump show. Between us, I think I know Fire Force is another Shonen Jump show. Vinland Saga, maybe? No, I don't think Vinland is it's not a Shonen Jump. It's not a Jump series.
It's not a Jump series, but it is a...
It's just a big manga, popular series that's been for the past few years.
Yeah, but let's see. If anyone wants to interject or tell me to stop, please tell me.
Yeah, maybe in this case, let's go by series. And did any of you other guys watch Dr. Stone?
No, I'm wanting to start it because it seems like something I'd probably like, but
Yeah.
I just have too much on my plate.
Yeah.
God knows that's true.
Sorry, Crunchyroll.
That's what you get for making so many anime every season.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so the next show was, again, Do You Love Your Mom and her 2-hit multi-target attacks? So do you, in fact, love your mom and her 2-hit multi-target attacks, Bill?
A mixture of... I am... Tori, you can wag your finger at me. It's totally fair game, but I like that there's a show where there's fan service of an older character, because most of the time with an anime, it's always like a lolly character or a character they say that, oh, she looks like she's 24, 27, but she's actually like 8.
She's 3,000 years old, but we put her in the body of a 12-year-old. What do you want from us?
Yeah, that type of stuff. And I really don't like that.
Okay, so here is my question. Isn't this show like borderline incestuous?
Yes, that's the
okay.
thing I dislike.
Because see, I thought I thought we got over that like 10 years ago, and we're no longer doing stuff like Oreimo and blah 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 blah. But I guess I was wrong.
I think they was like, we ran out of brother sister incest plots, so we should do mother son incest plots.
Oh, gross.
Yeah.
But see, it seems like one of those shows that had a really great and really funny, promising premise, and then they just went way too over the line with it, which is really unfortunate.
I will say the mom is funny though, like her complete like absence of like what an MMO is, and just her pure blindness of I'm just gonna enjoy this with her son who has no personality whatsoever.
Go watch
just
Dad of Light.
Being like so like stressed out of just like, why are you with me? I hate this.
It's still, yeah, I would say it's still pretty funny though overall.
Yeah.
It can be funny though. I have a conspiracy theory that I told Tobias earlier. Of just I think this is secretly a plot by some government force to say, hey, otakus, you really love your mom and you really love your parents. We have an older population, so you better be taking care of your parents, damn it. Just because the thing that gets really annoying with this show, besides the incest stuff, which please throw that in garbage, I don't want it, is just the weird constant speeches they give of just, and you will love your mom, and you will be always with your family and your mother. Aww. Just over and over and over again. They hammer that into your head, which gets really annoying. Where I just really don't like that part. I do like the older fan service when it's not weird incest stuff. Which I'm sorry, Tori. I know that's. And
Tori, you hate me.
And I do like the just complete idiocy of the MMO trope, like the loading screens. Like you've seen you've seen that, Edwin, when they just do that 8-bit loading screen.
Yeah, they were like referencing like they actually referenced like Famicoms and stuff like that in the show.
Yeah, so that's pretty fun. So yeah, I think for the most part it has some major flaws, but it still has its fun spots.
It's a 5 out of 10 show.
Yeah, I'd give it that.
I've heard enough people talk about how adorable the mom is that I'll probably give it a few episodes just to talk about her.
That's valid.
And just ignore the main character. He's just kind of a generic. Yeah,
he has no personality whatsoever.
His name is Tobias.
Wow. Well, you're not wrong, but you're an asshole. But maybe by the end of it, somebody will do a supercut where they just cut out all of his scenes completely and just have scenes like about her. It'll be a 2-episode show. All right. Well, the last show that those doofuses talked about was Vinland Saga.
I've watched an episode and it's definitely promising. I just gotta find the time to get around and actually sink my teeth into it.
Same.
I'm gonna say it's probably the best overall show of the season.
You're wrong.
That's it. I mean, it was one of those really popular manga series for a long while, so it was kind of hyped up enough where I'm glad that it's actually good.
Yeah, I mean, Wit brought their A game. Like, of course, the action sequences are really well done. Like, in the first episode, there's a major ship battle where you just see this character, Thor, just jump over and around a bunch of boats and just attacking soldiers left to right, and it looks great. What this show really scratches kind of my Legend of the Galactic Heroes itch, because it's about the conflict of military conflict. It's about there's some politics in the show, and a lot of just character growth with Thorsland right now, who is not wanting to spoil anything, going through some a major change in his life, and he's trying to adjust to it and kind of evolve past that. Which is the son of Thor's, who's just a little kid who idolized his dad for being a former warrior and has kind of the romance idea of what a warrior is. But as he kind of begins to see that, oh wait, this romance idea of war and of being a warrior is not what it's all cracked up to be. And they really get the dramatic tones are right on point. Nothing is cheesy or over the top or like why they do that. So far, it's been on the money.
So one thing I've kind of been one thing I kind of mentioned, because I've not ever really got into Vinland Saga as much as it's been, pushed as a great manga series. Would you say that it's a fair assertion that for people that are maybe coming off that Game of Thrones high, do you think this would be a good show for a Game of Thrones fan?
I disagree.
You disagree?
I think the reason why people are comparing it to Game of Thrones is because it's got a very Western aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I think if you took the aesthetic away, it wouldn't be Game of Thrones. Because Game of Thrones is a lot of political intrigue and backstabbing. And while there's some political stuff in that, it's not at the forefront. And there's not a lot of soapy romance stuff going on, too.
Okay. So it's just more focused on this very Norse setting, and they're more hardscrabble life, and this main character becoming a warrior then?
Yeah, this little kid having a traumatic moment in his life, and I think the show is going to progress of him trying to overcome it and probably be the warrior that his dad was. I don't know why, but it really scratches my Legend of the Galactic Heroes itch. It just hits the nail on the head on the coffin with kind of the grayness of politics and just what warfare is really like, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. Plus, it has the best opening song ever that could be at Warped Tour 2002. I love it so much. If you haven't heard it, people, go watch it.
Vinland Saga by way of Linkin Park.
Yep, exactly. I know I asked that question to the other group, so I will be excited to hear their responses. I know the show's gotten word of mouth, but one thing that kind of, I think, derailed it a little bit was Amazon out of nowhere, because it's on Amazon Prime exclusively. They released 3 episodes at once, and then it was deadly silent for 3 weeks. Which usually, for an anime season, that's death because there's so many other shows that people are watching. I don't know if that kind of if people are still actively watching it. I would love to hear from our audience if they're still actively watching Vinland Saga, or did they fall off because of the break they took?
Seems like that everyone is watching some kind of show that's behind different...
I think that's
different
just
streaming service.
Yeah,
that's the market in general, just the rise of streaming, and the bigger networks have kind of realized, anime is pretty popular, so we need to start paying for it. I mean,
it's just more fragmented now than ever. If you ever want to catch up with everything that's currently airing,
like Edwin, I know that you have been watching. It's not out yet. It'll be out, I think, sometime this month. But Carole on Tuesday, the new Shigeru Watanabe show, the director of Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo's new show, is the show's been in Netflix jail, and it's not, even though it's been out and done with in Japan. It's been waiting in the wings for a very long time, and now it's finally going to come out, I think, sometime this month. So yeah, I think that's just the media market in general. It's just things have become a lot more fragmented because everyone's trying to build up an arms race to compete with one another.
And I think you wrote an article on that for the website at one point, didn't you, Bill?
Yeah, why Netflix isn't anime's boogeyman? I still stand by that because I think competition is good, and I think we're so used to convenience that that just leads to monopolies and one source controlling everything. Well, while that may be convenient, that allows them to charge whatever they want and set what is popular and what is not, and I don't want that in.
Not only that, there
world.
Could be certain setbacks with said company, and that would just bring down the anime industry as a whole.
That's also very true. So yeah, I think Netflix is good. I just don't like the Netflix jail of we want to wait until everything's done, or we want to take our own time with subtitling and dubbing.
That's just how the Netflix demographic is. They just prefer to binge watch shows.
Which this could be this could be an article I could write, but I think binging is I think that's in hindsight that's kind of become bad because we have such short-term memories that we don't really binge stuff anymore. We probably get through a couple episodes and then forget about it.
And I don't really want to go too far out down the tangent hole, but
yeah,
when I started watching anime like for serious again back in like 2011, I moved away from binging a show that's completed into watching shows every week, and I do find that my enjoyment for shows does increase exponentially watching it weekly because you have time to really process it and think about it and talk about it, online or with your friends. And a lot of those, these theories that pop up in your head or these like the actual you enjoying this fandom, to me seems to increase when you give it time to like really germinate every week. So that's why I do enjoy doing seasonally reviews because watching it every week does lead to a different enjoyment than binging it all in one weekend.
You retain the shows better.
Yeah.
Can I if anyone else has anything else to say about Vinland Saga?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so just to kind of skim through the other shows that we didn't cover, there's Copcraft. I watched an episode of that, and Edwin, are you?
2 episodes in.
Okay, I'm actually enjoying this. This feels very, in a lot of ways, very cliched cop
very
procedural.
Cowboy Bebop-ish.
Yeah, but I really enjoy the way they blended these fantasy worlds into this modern setting. It's like if Bright were done well.
And being a fan of buddy cop films myself, I'm really enjoying the 2 main characters having the one little knight from the other realm, and then having the main character from the police department.
Yeah, it's an interesting blend that I enjoyed the first episode a lot. I'll probably catch up on it because I think it was a very strong first episode.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad it didn't turn out to be weird too, from what you guys were saying. So it looked really interesting. I kind of want to give that one a go myself.
One show that's not available anywhere that I've been watching. This is not a new show. This is the sequel to Takagi-san. So I've been having to fly to Japan to get that show.
You're gonna get on Ryan's frequent flyer miles.
Oh yeah, he's been really helping me out with that. And in just a quick short summation, if you really liked the first season of Takagi-san, which is on Crunchyroll, then you would like this. It's more just the fun dynamic of them having this kind of fun teasing matches with each other, and the main character Nishikata just being so over anxious and so overthinking everything that just makes me laugh. It's being aired exclusively on Netflix in Japan, so I think that's why we haven't seen it here. I am hoping it comes out properly here in somewhere. I'm just afraid it's going to be in Netflix type jail where for the first time, like the first season's on Crunchyroll and the second season's going to be on Netflix, which is going to be really jarring. And I think the first time that I've ever seen that happen, if that comes to be the case. No,
that would not be good at all. All right.
Yeah, I'm also watching a couple of leftover anime from previous seasons.
Same.
I'm watching Demon Slayer, Ace of the Diamond, and Carole and Tuesday.
Oh, yep, Carole. So how is Carole and Tuesday continuing?
It's continuing the development of the characters. They've finally been able to realize one chapter in their goal to be successful.
Is season 2 really holding up compared to the first season?
It's just as strong, if not even better. It's a little. The pacing's a little slower because they're not needing to introduce as much characters. They're not needing to do as much world building because it's all established. They're just introducing new characters and shown how they're helping out the two main characters.
Okay, I haven't really caught up with that, but I enjoyed the first few episodes that I got to see. It is definitely shaping up to be a really great modern day classic. Something I think that will last through the next couple of years. Of course, most of Watanabe's works are like that. Okay, so the next show I just want to give a quick shout out to is Granblem. Tori, have you watched any Granblem?
I have not, actually.
This is an incredibly Tori show. You should watch this. This is basically a Magical Girls show.
Okay.
But the Magical Girls' powers are they summon and fight in giant robots.
Oh, I love it already.
Yeah. The giant robots are more in the style of like an SD Gundam. They're very like chibi robots. They have kind of like a cute element to them that matches the Magical Girl fights.
Is this Magical Girls in despair, or is this Magical Girls just fighting in mecha?
There is definitely a lot of emotional interplay there. There's definitely some struggles they go through. The general idea is that they're basically in a fate tournament.
Oh, I see.
Where the winner will get the Holy Grail or whatever they call it here.
Okay.
So they're all fighting each other.
Which one's Saber?
They're all Saber.
They're all Saber.
Because all the characters in Fate are all
Saber.
Except
they all
that'd
different
be
outfits.
terrible.
Yeah.
They should all be Rins.
Oh god. Okay, this is an argument for another episode, is what I'm trying to say.
But I like the action they've set up here. There's a lot of time they spend on the characters. It's very cute, very interesting. The giant robot segments are incredibly well animated. If you're a fan of either Magical Girls or giant robots, either way, you should watch this show because it blends these two styles together in a really nice format, I think. I'm unfortunately behind on this as well, but it is. I'm enjoying it for sure. I would recommend. I think it's another thing that most people are sleeping on that we'll see a lot more people get into, hopefully by the end of the season.
大切な君へ届けたい愛君の嘘も幻も受け止めたいかけてしまったものだってすぐにまた集められるさもう真夜中は月を追いかけない一人背負い込まなくてもいいんだよ空白だったこの心だって思い出で溢れたきっとこれが答えだよ
Any other closing thoughts on these shows or any other shows or what you guys have been watching lately?
I just think that everything that everyone has talked about so far has been really solid. There's not really too many weak shows that are airing this season.
Yeah, I would agree because I usually only watch maybe 1 or 2 shows a season, but for this season alone, I'm watching 5 shows, which is like, oh my god, that's enormous for me.
I'm watching 9 shows right now.
Oh my god. I think I'm actively watching 3 things. That's Maidens, Dororo, and Demon Slayer. And Fruits Basket. So 4 things. That's like all that I have enough mental focus on to be able to focus on.
Yeah, that's tough. I would just kind of echo what I said before, that anybody who tells you that no good anime comes out nowadays is talking out their ass. Because we are still getting good shows. The past 3 years, we've gotten like notably great shows that I would recommend to the general populace, and it doesn't look to be stopping anytime soon. There's shows that will appeal to a wide variety of people.
Yeah, and the good train seems to keep coming with coming up pretty soon. Promare from Trigger and Zombieland Saga 2's coming.
Eventually, yeah. Have they announced any dates for that, or just the fact they're doing it?
There's just the fact they're doing it.
Okay, awesome. I think next year we're getting Promised Neverland Season 2 as well. I'm sure more My Heroes coming eventually. Okay. Oh, before we forget, we did get one question here, and I guess I should say I got this one question. This is from Sarah. Again, I'm going to call Sarah out on this podcast. Dear OnStars reviewer, who is your OnStars best boy, and why is it Anzu? Anzu's pretty great, but I think it's Spaghetti Boy. Spaghetti Boy rules.
Actually, I have a dumb idol question. I always am a fan of the older idol. Is there an older male idol?
There's not an older male idol except for the upperclassmen, but they're the school nurse, their sports nurse he's pretty much the older boy, the old boy. He's got this like little bit of scruff. He's always reeks of alcohol, which they joke about, and he's kind of got this playful relationship with the other characters. So he is my stand-in character. If I had to be around all those boys all day, I would be drunk all the time. It's the only way you can live.
You'd be drunk off of music.
yeah, and actual vodka. Both. Spaghetti Boy is probably my favorite so far. I don't even know why. It's just because we introduce him by he's eating spaghetti, and then he's got spaghetti all over his mouth until they wipe it off, which is another major plot point in this show, I guess. Who knows? All right. Well, if we don't have any more closing thoughts, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Again, this has been an episode of Third Impact Anime. You can check us out at our main site, thirdimpactanime.com, where you can find links to our other episodes, as well as all the articles that we have written. And by we, I mean mostly Bill, because Bill is our primary writer at this point. The article we mentioned earlier in passing, that Bill wrote, is available there, so you can check that out if you want to hear more of Bill's thoughts on the current distribution model.
And I'm saying this on the podcast so that way it'll make me write it. I will probably be writing a review about Go-Go 13, The Professional, that movie. That's going to be I'm going to write a review on that movie that's going to be on the website pretty soon. Okay. And I'll probably also do something about binging, since it's probably a good article topic. So definitely. Yeah. Thanks,
so I'll say that I'm gonna say that's your deadline. By the time this episode comes out, Bill will have an article, a fresh new article about Go-Go 13. You can check it on the website right now because Bill never lies, and it will be there. So by the time this episode comes out, whenever Austin produces it, whatever, it will be there.
Yes, it will.
Aside from our main site, where you can find links to our podcast and various stuff, we have our social media. You can find us on Facebook at Third Impact Anime. And we also have a community group as well. So if you like interacting with other Third Impact Anime fans, or just anime nerds in general, or like reading our news reposts. If you like pictures of our noses, you can see those in the Third Impact Anime community group. If Facebook isn't really so much your thing, we also have an Instagram. I believe that is just Third Impact Anime. I'm too old for Instagram myself, so I don't know. But we also have a Twitter. Twitter is just TI, as in Third Impact, _ anime, as in Japanese animation. And we post there and post questions. Whenever we do an episode, we ask people for questions. So if you want to ask us something to read on the next episode, feel free to do so in either one of those methods. Lastly, if you want to support the show in a more concrete manner, we have both a Patreon and a Ko-fi account, or Ko-fi, or however the kids say it. Again, just Third Impact Anime on both services. If you want to throw us a couple bucks there for a coffee at our next convention, or if you wanted to give us money in a more regular format, Patreon allows you to do so. And we have a couple of tiers and rewards available for our regular backers. Mm-hmm. So feel free to jump on that train and give us a little bit of Skrilla so we can continue to talk about anime and pay for the hosting, as I don't like paying for that myself. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap it up here with our individual social media shout-outs. Bill, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter at WB Foreman, Foreman spelled Foreman. 999, where I'm mostly retweeting about Lupin III, or I am retweeting about Hearthstone, or I am retweeting about the hype that the new One Piece movie might be actually coming to the States pretty soon. So I want that movie to come now. Please come now. He looks so good.
Bill definitely has a brand. A couple of brands, maybe. So in your name, WB, is that just William Billiam?
Yep.
It is.
It's my two alter egos.
All right, Edwin, where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me at Bebop Shock.
How do you Bebop as in
Cowboy Bebop, and Shock as in System Shock.
System Shock, okay. All right, yeah, so on Twitter at Bebop Shock. Tori, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Worst Waifu.
And lastly, I am also on Twitter at Reverend_Tobias. Please don't follow me.
と嘆くにはあまりにも時は過ぎてしまったまだ心のほころびを癒せぬまま風が